Hi and welcome to another class on English for IBPS. Here I am, Deepa Shankar, and today we will be doing grammar lessons and the application of grammar lessons that you've already been taught. Okay, so today we would be looking at error spotting exercise questions. As always, we start with a book suggestion. Today we have a classic, okay, and it's written by none other than R.K. Narayan. The subject, the title in itself is very interesting, especially to us, The English Teacher. Okay, so this is a classic of sorts. Now remember that R.K. Narayan is one of the most brilliant English writers that India has ever produced. Okay, his narrative style is very rich and his characters just come alive in Malgudi. Like all kids who've read R.K. Narayan, not just kids, adults also, Malgudi just stays in here. Okay, he has created his fictional town of Malgudi so very well that I refuse to believe that it's fictional. Okay, it's so vivid. My imagination, I can imagine the river Saryu or Swami, the English teacher, the tiger. It's brilliant. If you haven't read R.K. Narayan, this is the day you should start reading R.K. Narayan. You can probably start with the English teacher. The language, by the way, is extremely simple, and that is one of the things that I love about R.K. Narayan's writing. Okay, there is nothing pompous. There is absolutely no, large word that you have no idea about appearing in his novels. It's a treat to read. That's all I'll say. And we move on to a recap of the previous class. The previous class was something that we saw just 15 minutes back. Okay, we wrapped up our previous class just 15 minutes back, and we did vocabulary and sentence completion. Okay. So with vocabulary we saw how to learn from root words, Greek, Latin root words. Today that's what we saw. Okay, and how we deal with sentence completion, making use of the vocabulary knowledge that you have, and if you do not know the word, how do you go about with it. Very importantly, the step-by-step analysis of how sentence completion is optimally done. Okay, so since most of you would have not completed your CPP, I don't have data on this slide. Okay, so the CPP is was something brilliantly done, so please go ahead and take a look at it. Please give it a shot. Now we move on to error spotting basics. Okay, so for error spotting, what exactly is the error spotting exercise? You are given a sentence that's broken into parts. Okay, so this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D. Okay, and there is also an option that says no error. Okay, so there is the probability of this given sentence being correct as such. Now, there is a very psychological edge that we need to discuss before we go ahead with the exercise questions. Now, as I said, with the error spotting question, you are given a sentence that is split into parts A, B, C, D. Okay, and most of us cannot mark E no error as the answer for some random reason. Okay, we are always thinking about the possible error in the sentence. Now remember that there is the very real possibility of the given sentence being correct as such. Okay, most students go wrong in sentences that are correct as such. Okay, so just give some thought to it before marking. When you think it is no error, give it a secondary thought. If it is going to stay that way, let it. Okay, trust yourself. Now, as I said, the given sentence may or may not contain errors, and it is split into parts. Okay, now each part is labeled. your job is to spot the error. If there is an error in C, C happens to be your answer. As simple as that. So for this you need a firm grasp of grammar. Now do you remember why we did so many grammar classes? Quite a few of you did not quite like the deep learning grammar classes. But remember that without a firm grasp on basic grammar, your sentence correction and error spotting exercise questions will just not be easy for you. Okay, that is why we devoted so much of time in doing grammar basics. Then we need to look at sentence construction and context. Okay, so these are your error spotting basic lessons. What do I mean by sentence construction? Do I put it in a passive voice, active voice, reported speech, indirect speech, direct speech? Okay, then there is context. Some words can occur only in some context. Okay, so you take the word out of context, it doesn't mean the same. So we'll have a quick recap of grammar rules that are essentially very important to your error spotting exercise. The first one we see is subject verb agreement. Okay, very quick recap with examples. He likes her. They like her. Now remember, he is singular, the subject is singular, likes, the verb takes the singular form with the S attached to it. They is plural. Okay, this is a plural subject and the verb associated with this plural subject is like. Okay, so this has many variations, there are several rules, but remember that the verb has to agree with the given subject. Next we see parallelism. Parallelism example, I like to swim and to dance. I can say I like swimming and dancing. Okay, remember if it is to swim here, this again has to be in its infinitive form, to dance. You cannot say I like swimming and to dance. Got it? That is parallelism. Then modifier. A modifier is something additional. It is completely optional and it is added to say something more, additional information on the noun. Okay, or sometimes the verb. The adverb is actually a modifier and it modifies the verb. The modifier has to be placed at the right position. We saw the classic example, I shot an elephant in my pajamas. Okay, so I think I spent close to 10-15 minutes on this single example. Okay, so I doubt you would forget that ever. Remember that placing your modifier in my pajamas close to elephant, the object, gives rise to the confusion, is the elephant in pajamas? Am I in pajamas? Logically speaking, you know that I am the one in pajamas. Correct? But you've made the mistake of placing in the pajamas the modifier for the subject close to the object. Okay, so this is unforgivable. Okay, so it should be in my pajamas, comma, I shot an elephant. So that is about modifiers, misplaced modifiers, dangling modifiers. Then we see adverb phrase. Okay, so for example, I want to catch up with you over lunch. Catch up is an adverbial phrase. Sorry, this is just a phrase. Okay, so catch up is used instead of a verb. It means to, talk to someone and see what the other one has been up to. Okay, you use a phrase in place of a verb. What are the mistakes that can crop up in this particular example? You can say, instead of up, you can probably say catch with you. That's completely wrong. Or a wrong preposition there, completely wrong again. Then we looked into the right order of adjectives. Okay, so there is a very specific order. Can you ever say, look at this, small blue house, or is it going to be blue small house? Now you've spoken English for a long time and you know that small blue house is right, blue small house is wrong. Correct? Okay, so there is a certain order of adjectives that you need to follow when you create sentences. Now we look into the previous class contest question. I'm sorry, I have the wrong contest question here. Nevertheless, let's just look into today's contest question. Good luck. A good run with today's contest question. Okay, so let's look at the first exercise question. The team discussed about the problem so thoroughly on the eve of the project delivery that I found it very easy to work it out. Okay, now look at every single unit. So this is how your sentence is split. Okay, the team discussed about the problem. Any problem here? Anything at all? Remember that you do not say discuss about, you only say discuss the problem. Discuss is a transitive verb. So when I say I want to discuss, discuss what comes into the picture. Okay, you can discuss a problem, you discuss on a problem, you don't discuss about a problem. Okay, so this is wrong. See, the problem is we typically repeat these mistakes very often that we do not think that this is indeed wrong in the first place. Okay, so ideally the sentence should read, the team discussed the problem so thoroughly on the eve of the project delivery that I found it very easy to work it out. Okay, so this is an issue with this alone. Rest of the stuff is completely alright. There is absolutely no problem. On the eve of the project delivery. What do you mean by eve? Christmas Eve, New Year Eve. Okay, Christmas Eve is 24th of December, while New Year Eve is 31st of December, one day before Christmas or New Year. So A is the answer here. A is where the problem lies. The correct sentence should read, the team discussed the problem so thoroughly on the eve of the project delivery that I found it very easy to work it out. Any problem here? Okay, next we move to a civilian ship laden with merchandise got drowned in the Indian Ocean. Okay, now a civilian ship, no problem there, laden with merchandise. We have seen lay, laid. Now look at this, lay the book on the table. Lay is a transitive verb. Okay, when you say lay, then you need to have an object right next to it. You need to say this is what you're going to lay. Okay, then when you say lie, this is lie down, or I was lying down. Okay, so lie is to do with myself or a person. Lay is to do the same but with an object. Okay, laden with merchandise. Lay, laid and laden. Okay, so this is the past perfect form of lay. Okay, so laden with merchandise, this is also correct, no problem there. Got drowned, that is your issue. It should be just drowned, not got drowned. Okay, so typically we do see that a lot of people say I got conceived. No, it's just I conceived this idea. Okay, so got drowned, that's the problem zone. So C is your answer. The correct sentence should read, a civilian ship laden with merchandise drowned in the Indian Ocean. So C is your answer here. That is where we have spotted an error. I could not put up in a dormitory because the accommodation charges were ridiculously high. Now let's go backward. Ridiculously high. High is an adjective. Ridiculously, is that an adjective or an adverb? An adjective is typically a word that describes the noun. An adverb is typically a word that describes a verb or an adjective. Okay, so I take this opportunity to tell you that ridiculously here is an adverb. Okay, so for example, another oft repeated adverb that we do not realize that we are using as an adverb is very. He was very fast. It was a very rainy evening. Okay, so when you say very rainy, rainy is an adjective, very is an adverb. You add a degree, okay, degree of intensity, it's an adverb. Now, because the accommodation charges were ridiculously high, now again I do not see any problems here. I could not put up in a dormitory. This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Okay, so I could not stay in a dormitory, or I could not rent a dormitory. I could not find accommodation in a dormitory because the accommodation charges were ridiculously high. That should be the right sentence. A is wrong. It makes no sense whatsoever. Okay. Next we see The Indian economy, which was previously controlled by the colonial powers, is free now from the narrow vested interests. Okay. Now, whenever you have which, remember to ask yourself something. Look at this. The house which was sold to Radha, and then blah 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 blah. Then you write the house that was sold to Radha. What is the difference between these two clauses? What's a clause? What's a phrase, by the way? A clause has its own subject and its own verb. A phrase is just a couple of more words that make some sense together. Okay. Now, the house which was sold to Radha, the house that was sold to Radha. So, this will be your homework today. Find out the difference between the usage of which and that. Let me know through your comments, or if you are available right now, please let me know. Anyone? Let me just check. Okay, so do research on this, please do. Okay, now, which was previously controlled by the colonial powers? The Indian economy, there is obviously no problem there. Which was previously controlled by the colonial powers is free now from the narrow vested interest. Tell me this, is it now free or free now? The problem with this sentence is now free, that should be right, free now is wrong. Okay, the Indian economy which was previously controlled, so there is a time frame. Okay, previously controlled by the colonial powers is now free. So there is a the ordering of adverbs or adjective is wrong here. It should be is now free from narrow vested interests. Okay, vested interests of the colonial powers, that's what we mean. Okay, so this is slightly tough, not many get it right, so it's okay if you don't know of this now, but make sure you go back and study your previous lesson on the right order of adjectives and adverbs. Okay, so please do that. So the answer here is C. Had I been aware of this yesterday, I will have helped her. Okay, had I been aware of this, is the sentence construction correct here? You might say, if I had been aware of this. Now this is right, absolutely right, there is no problem with that. Okay. Now remember that it is also right to say, had I been aware of this. If I had been aware of this problem yesterday, I would have come to your aid. Had I been aware of this earlier, I would have come to your aid. Okay. So a lot of people mark A as the answer thinking it is wrong, but remember, had I been aware of this is perfectly right as such, there is no problem. Please don't go and correct what is already correct. Okay. Yesterday, no problem there. So this is right, this is right. I will have helped her. Now it should read, I would have. Okay. Why is it would? If you go back and study the specific lessons for this associated with this, you would know that you are talking about something that did not happen. Okay, so there is a degree of probability that you deal with. Will is associated with certainty, while would is associated with probability. When we were doing modal verbs, we did this. Okay, so you don't know, you know, you can say that if I had been aware of this, I would have definitely done it. But the grammatical way of putting it right is would have, because in reality it did not happen. You're talking about a possibility. If she had told me, I would have done this. Okay, so there is no certainty here. It did not happen in real life. Okay, you're talking about an assumption that you would have indeed done something if you had, you know, if a prerequisite condition had been met. Okay, so here in this case it should be would and not will. Okay, let's also look at some other examples. If you had come home earlier, you would have had a great dinner. Okay, so whether it is first person, second person or third person, remember it's would, okay, and not will. It did not happen, so you cannot attach a sense of certainty to it. It's probability. So the answer here is C. Next, a lot of commute related delay is caused due to the inefficiency and lack of good management on behalf of the railways. Okay. Now, there is absolutely no problem here. A lot of commute related delay is caused. Okay. Now, typically you say caused because or caused by. Due to is not wrong though, but the ideal way of putting this forward is by, caused by. Lung cancer in his case was caused by passive smoking. He's never smoked a cigarette in his life, but he was always exposed to second-hand smoke, and his lung cancer is caused by passive smoking. Okay, so caused by, that is more ideal. Nevertheless, caused due to, not exactly wrong. Caused due to the inefficiency and lack of good management. Okay, so it is completely parallel, not a problem there. On behalf of the railways. No, on behalf of does not mean anything here. Typically, when you say behalf of, you say, I would like to thank you on behalf of my family. Or I can say I would like to express my gratitude on behalf of my association, blah blah blah. Okay, so you get that there is a specific context that you use on behalf of with. Okay, so you can say on behalf of when you are taking you know, the opportunity to say something which is something said by the others as well. That is on behalf of. I am accepting the award today on behalf of Joey Tribbiani. Okay, if he had been here, he would have collected the award himself, but I am not the recipient of this award. I am just collecting it on behalf of him. Got it? That is the context that you should be using with on behalf of. Now look at this. This, in this case, on behalf of the railways. Okay, there is no absence of the railways in the first place. Railways is still there. Okay, this should be a lot of commute related delay is caused because of the inefficiency and lack of good management by the railways or of the railways. Okay, so this is where the problem lies. C is the right answer for this particular sentence. this particular question. Then, one of the party members expressed doubts on whether the minister was a whistleblower. Context again, what is whistleblowing? So this is an idiom phrase of, a phrase that is used in the English language. It has nothing to do with a physical whistle or blowing a whistle. Okay, when someone blows a whistle on his organization, he is taking some news of some unethical behavior happening in his organization to someone either superior to his immediate supervisor or to the outside public. Okay, so several governmental organizations have had incidences of whistleblowing by internal employees. Okay, so there is a lot of ethics involved with whistleblowing. I just wanted to explain this because you shouldn't lose this question just because you have no idea about whistleblowing. Okay, so one of the party members expressed doubts on whether the minister was a whistleblower. Now remember that this again is a condition. When there is no certainty, you cannot use was again. Is, was, will, no. Okay, were. Okay, so that is the right word to be used here. One of the party members expressed doubts on whether the minister were, in this case, I'm sorry. In this case, it makes sense because if this had been first person, then yes, one of the party members expressed doubts on whether the minister was a whistleblower. In this case, the answer is no error. I'm sorry, I have also fallen prey to the psychological edge on the given sentence always being wrong. Okay, so this again is a classic example of the given sentence being right, no correction. Now look at this. One of the party members expressed doubts on whether the minister was a whistleblower. Okay. Now what happens if I replace the minister with I? One of the party members expressed doubts on whether I was a whistleblower. In this case, it would be were. Okay. So if this becomes first person, then you would be using were. Look at this as well. If I were or was, what is this? Dying, you would correct my grammar. What is it? Is it was or were? The correct answer is were. Okay. So it's a very fine line between were and was. Okay. So the correct option is, if I were dying, you would correct my grammar, and not was. You're talking about an assumption, a hypothetical condition, and not something that actually happened in real life. In that case, you do not use something that is typically used for definite certainty. You use something that indicates probability. Okay. So that is the confusion here. So the answer here is D, no error. Any problem? Okay, so next, I have got my postgraduate degree in 2007. There isn't much of a problem with this. you can't do much about time in 2007. Okay. Temporal and spatial specifications. Temporal means time, spatial is to do with location. Okay. Now, when do you use in and when do you use at? In typically with time, yes, but when it is location, okay, what happens then? Look at this example. I was in Paris at the Angelica's cafe having hot chocolate. I was in Paris, geographical location, at the cafe, another geographical location, but I use in here, at here. In Paris, in is used for a larger place. I was in India, okay, I was at the ashram. So, when you look at India or Paris, you are talking about a very wide geographical location, okay, and within that place, where am I? Then at comes to the picture. I was at the cafe, I was at the cinema theatre, okay. So, when you are very specific, then you use at. Wide, geographical location, then it is in. Any problem there? I've got my postgraduate degree in 2007. As I said, no problem here. My postgraduate degree, no problem here. So, it has to be either A or D. Now, I have got is wrong. It's either I got my postgraduate degree or I have received my postgraduate degree. Okay. I have received my degree in 2007 or I got. Got is simple past. Okay. Now, I got my degree in blah 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 or I have received. What is the difference between these two? When you say I got, it's over, it's simple past and it's over. I got it only once, start, end, it's all over in 2007. There is no continuity. When you say I have received, it means that the degree is still valid even today. I have received. Okay. So, there is a sense of continuity when you use have. Okay. So, that is why the have part comes into the picture. Any problem here? So, here option A is your answer. The correct sentence should be I have received my postgraduate degree in blah 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 or I got my postgraduate degree in 2007. Okay. So, with this we move to if you give him a book, he will lend it to someone else and never you will get it back. If you give him a book, condition, no problem there. He will lend it to someone else, no problem there. Okay. It's a clause that makes perfect sense. And if you put this clause and this clause together, it still makes perfect sense. Never you will get it back. It should be you will never get it back. Okay. Now, look at this, never is associated with get. Okay. We call this the negation operator. Never get meaning he will not get it. Okay. So, these are far apart and this is a dangling or misplaced modifier. Okay. So, remember that this is wrong because of this reason. The correct sentence should read, if you give him a book, he will lend it to someone else and you will never get it back. Any problem there? One golden rule that I want to tell you, whatever you modify and your modifier, keep it together. Okay. So, this is a golden thumb rule that you follow. What it modifies, the modifier itself, it should be adjacent. Any problem? So the answer here is C. The correct sentence should read, if you give him a book, he will lend it to someone else and you will never get it back. And we come to the summary. Today we've done a quick recap of grammar rules that we've studied in the past and where it applies to your error spotting exercises. We've looked at specific, very typical error spotting exercise questions, and I've made use of these questions to teach you, certain grammar rules all over again. Okay, so that's it. We summarize the class. And passport members, please rush to do your CPP. Your CPP is a set of 10 questions that are expertly curated to coincide with whatever you've studied today. So the 10 questions would be testing you on concepts that were taught in class today. So the application is in your hands. Make use of your concepts, apply it in the CPP questions, and good luck with your questions. So you can of course share it with others who need help with their preparation. So please go ahead, share the CPP with others as well. Okay, see you then. Have a great Saturday. Have a great weekend. See you soon. Bye.